I was born in India, surrounded by hills. At the age of 3, my parents, both doctors, moved to the UK. We would regularly travel back to India. On one of these India trips, I was shocked and distressed to see children about my age working in the kitchens, doing manual labor, and subject to poor living conditions. It was a stark contrast from my life and world in the UK. I complained to hotel management about this. Remember, I was all of 9 years old. Their disheartening response: at least they have a job. At least they don't go hungry. Over the years, I came to realize that freedom, liberty, equality are concepts that many exploited people aren't even aware of. If you don't know that you are being exploited, how can you ever be liberated? On another visit to India, just outside our house, were children and adults in extreme poverty. Just one dark room for a whole family. Little to eat, barely enough to make ends meet. How hard, then, would it be to exploit someone from such conditions? When we are born as equals, how does this still happen today? This is a root cause of modern slavery, and it is a hard problem to solve. The theme of our conference today is imagine. Now I want you to imagine you are Priya, a 12-year-old girl working in a factory. Your father has died. Your mother works full-time as a maid. You have 8 brothers and sisters. You don't have the luxury of going to school. You have to earn money. In the factory, you've been abused, physically, sexually, and emotionally. There are times when you have been beaten so badly, you've lost consciousness. You've been bruised and scarred from the impact and the trauma. You have no rest breaks. You are undernourished. The equipment you use is frequently dangerous. Your employer does not do anything about it. You are barely seen as human. You are just another resource to use. You have no concept of freedom or liberty. Even if you somehow learned of these concepts of freedom and liberty, even if you somehow found the courage and found a way to seek redress and report this, you still think twice. Why? Because you would be blamed. You would be labeled damaged. Because you would fear victim blaming or have your less than minimum wage pay cut. And worse, any complaint would lead to more abuse. If you were in the shoes of someone like Priya, what would you want the rest of the world to do to help you? We've heard the rhetorics of modern civilization and democracy, liberty and equality for all. All are created equal towards a more perfect union. Clearly, we have a way to go. We in this room take these concepts, freedom and liberty, for granted. They are self-evident. They are established. And we are unaware of the millions that are exploited by modern slavery. And they are unaware of the very concepts of freedom and liberty. This must change. This is our universal challenge. We, as advantaged, responsible, and compassionate fellow humans, must accept this as our hard problem to solve. So, what is modern slavery? It is exploitation through oppression, coercion, control, and deception. We find examples of modern slavery across the globe, from India, the UK, Congo, and China. We've heard about exploitation in India, in hospitality, and in a garment factory for a little girl. Here, in our own country, the UK, the Leicester sweatshop scandal revealed the appalling condition and treatment of labor. In Congo, cobalt mining is rampant with the exploitation of child labor. In China, minority groups are subject to appalling conditions and treatment. But how aware are you about where these everyday products come from? Do you know the human cost of enjoying these things? Are you and I benefiting from the exploitation of another? Do you care? So let's regroup and reiterate. Freedom is a concept. Indeed, it is a universal human right. Liberation of the oppressed is our collective human responsibility. Formal and organized resistance has always been the driving force of change. This principle is seen in great liberation movements from Gandhi to Mandela. So how do we address this? With sight. Historically, the slave trade was built on the idea of sight between the master and the slave. A master did not see a slave as an equal human. He saw a slave as property. Change finally occurred when both master and slave were forced and taught to see each other as equal humans. For change to occur, the oppressed, the oppressor, and all fellow humans must be taught to see modern exploitation for what it is. It is modern-day slavery. It must be seen as such. Consumers can be taught that the products they buy may well involve modern-day slavery. Consumers can be taught that their inadvertent participation in this hard problem is what allows it to exist today. In the 18th century, Edmund Burke said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." My adaptation: the only thing necessary for modern slavery to prevail is for consumers, corporations, and governments to stand by and do nothing. If you thought that slavery had been abolished in the 1800s, how does this still exploit 50 million people across the globe today? Now some more details on modern slavery. First, here in the UK, Not too far away, the Leicester sweatshop scandal revealed the horrific condition and treatment of workers, from unsanitary to substandard facilities, meager wages as little as £3.50 an hour. This was a stark wake-up call for us as society, realizing that modern slavery is systemic and it is embedded in our supply chains. This led to the introduction of the UK Modern Slavery Act in 2015, led by Theresa May. Cobalt mining, largely in Congo, is used to make advanced batteries. Out of the 255,000 citizens of Congo that work on cobalt mines, shockingly, 40,000 are children, some as young as 6. They are subject to horrific conditions and abuse. They spend their days in dark underground tunnels in the sweltering heat. Xinjiang in China. Cotton is the staple fiber used in textiles, home furnishing, and the clothes we wear. China is the largest producer of cotton, with 84% of Chinese cotton coming from the Xinjiang region. The cotton is produced through a state-sponsored system of detention and forced labor. This involves roughly 1.8 million Uyghur minority groups. Roughly 1 in 5 cotton garments used globally is sourced from the Uyghur region. The goods are significantly tainted with the exploitation of forced labor. This is found 83 major household brands supplying from this region. How aware are you about where these everyday products come from? From the clothes you're wearing right now, or to that new smartphone you just bought. Do we know the human cost of enjoying this? Imagine how you would feel if you were in the shoes of someone like Priya, or a little boy in the cobalt mine in Congo, or a minority worker in China, or in a UK sweatshop. Now let's see how we address this. Let's look at the economics which drive modern slavery. Let's see if there's an economic solution here. Let's look at this through risk and reward economics. Slavery cannot exist without its economic benefit. So how do we eradicate the economic advantage of modern slavery? One way is to empower the responsible, compassionate consumer with knowledge. The consumer can then remove the profit of the business and its economic viability. Let's illustrate the vast economic scale of this problem. The global profit of modern slavery, as concluded by the ILO, is $150 billion per year. Around $99 billion from sex slavery and another $51 billion from other forms, including forced labor. So what can you and I do about this? Reduce the demand. Be responsible and compassionate consumers. Break the supply chain. Unchain the supply. Call governments, corporations, and consumers to action. Imagine you are an informed consumer. You have access to modern technology and tools. This informs you whether your purchase involves exploitation. How much more responsible and compassionate would you feel? This is the core of our work and mission today. We want the consumers, corporations, and governments to be part of our solution to this hard problem. This is a hard problem, after all. We need everyone's participation. If you remember only one thing from this talk today, let it be this: the only thing necessary for modern slavery to prevail is for consumers, corporations, and governments to stand by and do nothing. Right now, you may be thinking and asking, what can I do? What can one person do? Let me conclude with this response. Start taking action. Momentum will build. I, for one, have started taking action. Momentum has been building. I recently met with Theresa May, who led and enacted the Modern Slavery Act in 2015. She is committed and helping us in this mission. Start taking action. Momentum will build. It starts with just one person. You can listen. You can learn. You can convince another person to act. Change starts with you. I routinely draw solace from the words of Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful and committed individuals can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. Imagine a world where every human is equal and free. It always seems impossible until it is done. Thank you.